feel like Gordon Bombay would have taken his career to even further heights.
Everything's flashy, everything's cocaine, everything's
Fun. Open wide for some soccer.
I don't care what you think about what your personal thoughts are at home. I care that you hate the Cowboys.
Call this college rule.
Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Experience Podcast. I'm Chris with my co-host, Dom. We record every single episode right here at Engle Studio. If you have any recording needs in Tucson, please go to our social media, Sports Experience Podcast on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're trying to get those things going.
Bump up those numbers. It's good content, guys. Come on, join in.
Other than that, who are we talking about today? We got a
all-time great Hall of Famer.
We're talking football again, which I'm excited for.
Going for it a second time. One of the greatest running backs of all time, Emmitt Smith.
Emmitt Smith.
Interesting guy here. Emmitt James Smith III, born May 15th, 1969 in Pensacola, Florida. He started playing football at age 8 and, well, started doing very well at football at age 8.
Yeah, I guess there was a Salvation Army kind of little league, and they said right away he was just a step above everybody else.
Yeah, the best on the field, and that progressed through high school at Escambia, where he played football and ran track, won 2 state titles, and had, at the time, the second most total rushing yards in American high school history in his career with 8,804. Which means if you start as a freshman, you're averaging 2,200 a season.
It's crazy. I saw that his high school didn't have a winning football season before he went.
Yeah.
And then had 2 back-to-back state championships in his junior and senior year. So if you think it's not all about Emmitt Smith
it's
on this
all
one,
about Emmitt Smith.
Yeah, there you go.
106 rushing touchdowns, and on the track team was part of the 4x100 relay. And in 1986 was USA Today and Parade's Player of the Year, All-Century Team by the Florida High School Athletic Association, and Player of the Century as well. So, I mean, especially in a football hotbed like Florida, 20th century high school football, you got to be doing something right, Chris.
It's very true. And he was looked at as the best running back coming out of this just like bevy of players. So
well, and that's the thing. He was thought of as a great high school player, but he had some detractors, and this is something that would also affect his draft stock in the professional ranks. Emmitt, as we'll get into later, is not Barry Sanders. He is not the shiftiest. He is not the fastest straight line running back. And a lot of people, detractors, one man said he was a lugger, not a runner. He's not fast. He can't get around the corner. When he falls flat on his face, remember where you heard it first. Max Emringer, I believe, a high school recruiting person. Or
eating
college
those words.
Yeah, eating those words.
He was a very up-the-middle runner.
What Emmitt did well, and we'll get into it and why he fit like a glove for the team that he played for, his field vision was excellent. His feet were quick. He would follow his blockers to a T, but he would also create his own yards and get yards after contact, and most important was his durability. He was 5'9", about 215 pounds, but your availability is your best ability as a running back. And Emmitt had all of those things, including toughness, across the board.
Yeah.
And he ends up going to the University of Florida,
where he said literally every program was recruiting him, but he wanted to stay. And he was always a huge Florida fan, which they're just coming off of a shit ton of penalties.
Yeah, because they're coming off probation at this point, and they're trying to rebuild the program, and Emmitt's like, I'm going to stay home and rebuild this, and does a pretty nice job for them.
Well, and this is what they were saying was, this is where programs either come back or they falter because nobody wants to go there because they don't know who's going to go there.
Yeah.
So Emmitt Smith, he declares that he's going to the Gators, and then they literally can go around the country and be like, look who we have coming. Do you want to be in his class? It was such a great tool.
Lisa, always give in to peer pressure.
Yes.
1987, he doesn't start his 2 games as a freshman, but in the second game, he has 10 carries for 109 yards against Tulsa and a 66-yard touchdown run, and then proceeds to start the next week against the Alabama Crimson Tide on the road And 39-year record breaks for Emmitt breaks a 39-year record, 39 carries, 224 yards on the ground, and 2 touchdowns. He went over 1,000 yards in his first 7 games, 2 of which he did not start.
Well, like we're going to probably reiterate a bunch, but he is a running back that has durability, that has so many fucking carries. That's the thing that's crazy, is they're not like using him sparingly. He's not splitting time with somebody else. He's the main guy all the time.
Well, the thing with Emmitt I want to bring up is people always talk about the 40 when it comes to a running back. Emmitt, in his pre-draft process, while they don't really know, he's probably like a 4.6, 4.7 guy. That's straight line speed. But when you think about the running back position, how many 40-yard runs are guys getting in a season? Number one. It's all about your short area quickness,
your 10-yard
your vision. Yeah. And you could just keep pounding the rock with him. And he had plenty of long runs in the NFL of more than 40 yards. But it's a very overrated thing where guys like Emmitt get overlooked, or teams who need a running back like that who would fit their scheme perfectly would just look at a 40 time and go, no, not for me.
And you're right, his draft stock gets lessened because of these little stat numbers that really somewhat matter, but really don't if the guy is like... You turn on
the film and you're like, that guy just toted the rock 40 times, averaged like 4.5, and his team won the game.
You have to look at that. That's the thing, that you can't just look at the stats and be like, I don't know. You have to be like, oh, this is... up the middle, 10-yard run. Like, no.
That's a first down, which they'll score on the drive that they needed. You know what I mean? So that year he finished with 1,341 yards, SEC and National Freshman of the Year. So, I mean, on the college football scene, and then in 88, the Gators start 5-0, and it's a huge reason why. 120-plus on the ground, and then he ends up getting injured versus Memphis State, which is unfortunate because they end up finishing 7-5. He has 988 rushing yards despite the limited playing time.
Yeah.
But they win the 88 All-American Bowl against Illinois, so you're thinking, all right, well, he's healthy again. 89 is going to be a great season, and it was. Go ahead.
Oh, 80. Yeah, sorry, man. 89. Well, like you were saying, this is what I was saying was this class comes in, and they're not a senior class, but they're essentially a junior class, all coming together.
But they've all been playing for 3 years because of all these penalties.
Yes, and
Florida.
So this is what I mean. You pretty much see this is where Florida, and I thought this was interesting that he said this. He was just like, we kind of paved the way for those late 80s, early 90s Florida teams that were so dominant, because this was like the first year that people were like, oh, shit.
Well, yeah, what they ended up doing was being like, hey, we're building this program. You take it to new heights because you don't have to deal with any of the crap that we had to deal with.
Yes.
As far as loss of scholarships, money, bowl games, TV appearances. Like, this is an attractive place to play because we built this. You just take it to the next level, which ended up happening. But 1989 sets a record with 1,599 rush yards. He had 316 in a game against New Mexico, 96-yard run against Mississippi State, and finished his career with 3,928 rushing yards.
And what did they go? Did they go 10-1? I forgot. Or did they go 9-2 or something?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that was the thing that he said. He was just like, you could feel that the program that he grew up watching kind of turned around. Because I imagine his freshman year, even though they were good, it wasn't the same Florida that he grew up with.
And he left as the career rushing yards a game leader, career rushing touchdowns. He had 58 school records by the time he left. That's like a program cornerstone.
And I love that in 3 years.
Yeah.
That's the thing I always love when guys do that in 3 years. So,
First team All-SEC, three times first team All-SEC, SEC Player of the Year in 1989, first team All-American. And then what ends up happening, though, is on January 1st, 1990, Steve Spurrier is Florida's new head coach, which 2 reasons why I agree with Emmitt for the decision that he makes, because this is the first year juniors are allowed to come out, true juniors, is that Steve Spurrier brought the fun and gun and passing game to the SEC. Emmitt's not going to get as many opportunities to run the ball as he did and be the main man in the offense. It's more quarterback-based. Number two, when you're a running back with that many carries in college and you can go to the NFL and get your payday for making no money as a student athlete, you take the money and go.
Well,
you've already accomplished everything you needed to.
Literally, the choice was to stay and watch his draft stock possibly plummet because they're not running the ball for shit.
Or get hurt.
Or go and make money. And I can't imagine not going and making money. It's crazy to me.
So leading into the 1990 draft, there are teams that like Emmitt and there are teams that don't. I always liked his draft outfit. That was like polka dotted vest. I don't know if you saw that. God bless the early 90s.
I'll tell you what I love was they asked him about it like recently, like 5 years ago or whatever. And he goes, polka dots were in there.
Yeah.
They were I was styling then. And you look at him, you're just like, you look silly. But yeah, he had like a yellow shirt and like a polka dotted vest. It was.
I've always felt if you're so good at something, you can do whatever, you can dress however the hell you want to.
Seriously. And he was the
Prince,
best.
Great example.
It's the best running back coming out of this draft. And he's like, I'm going to dress like it.
Yeah. The issue, though, that people were referring to as he was entering college is still an issue in the NFL. Teams are scared of his long speed. Mm-hmm. They don't see the forest for the trees, that this is a durable, tough, smart, and very vision-inclined back that is a perfect size at just about 5'9", 215, who can step right into an NFL offense.
Well, which is probably so hard for scouts to be like, how do I know that he's going to make that next step? But I feel like he should have been rated higher.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's,
Well, so what ends up happening is he starts to drop. Most people thought, okay, even though his speed's an issue, he'll be in the top 10.
Yes.
But he starts slipping into the tweens and the teens. And the Dallas Cowboys, who have multiple first-round picks due to a Herschel Walker trade, everyone, are sitting at the 21st overall pick. They have a player in mind they would like to take and trade up for, a linebacker from Baylor, because they do need a middle linebacker. They pretty much need everything after their 1-15 season in '89. They want to take James Francis, but the Cincinnati Bengals come up and swipe him. So they're left with, who the heck do I get?
They were they didn't think another team was going to come up and take James Francis. They were sure they almost were going to get him. So there wasn't a lot of plan B at this, which I thought was interesting because it was really like, okay, now what do we do?
Well, and this is the thing. During Emmitt's freshman season at Florida, a certain college coach saw him play, and a certain college coach probably tried to recruit him to his college, Jimmy Johnson at Miami.
One Double J.
Double J. They need a running back because obviously they just got rid of Herschel Walker. So they're like, well, who do we go with? So they trade up to the 17th overall spot with the Pittsburgh Steelers and take Emmitt Smith.
Well, I thought it was interesting from Jimmy Johnson where they were sure Francis was going to fall. When he didn't, they were like, let's go get a running back. If we're going to get a running back, let's make sure we get the best one.
Yeah, because they were probably like, this guy should have gone in the top 10 and we need somebody. It's 4 picks. They dealt almost nothing to move up to get him. And
exactly.
This is their second first-round pick, also because of the Minnesota deal. So they end up taking Emmitt, and despite his lengthy contract holdout, he comes into a very young and improving team and does awesome. And this starts off basically a decade plus of tremendous football.
Well, I thought it was interesting because they weren't a run-based offense right away, or they weren't even like.
Well, they needed to be run-based because at this time, Dallas is building one of the best offensive lines in league history.
And they say that it was like week 9, week 10, you can see the carries just kind of like almost double and triple.
Yeah.
So like I think he was averaging like 12 carries in the beginning of the season, and then it becomes the end of the season, and he's averaging like 26. And
the line is gelling with Tuanay and Williams and Gogan and Gisick and Stepnoski and Nate Newton. I mean, like, and that's the thing why Emmitt fits this offense so well under Norv Turner is you are run first. You have a big offensive line for this smart back who's very compact to hide behind and running those lead draws.
And that was their play, was the lead draw. That's what they said. But you're right, is that he follows his blocker, and the way, because there's such small gaps for running backs, but he can find the exact gap that opens.
And if it's not open, he made his own yards so well. And he didn't do it necessarily like a Barry Sanders would, like flashy or making like dudes miss with ridiculous footwork. He'd just be like, this isn't there. Instead of losing 2, I'll gain 4 through this hole that I make for myself.
And like people were saying, this might be one of the best gelled offensive lines with their running back. Like, they really knew exactly what everybody was going to do. And
finished the year with 937 rush yards, 11 touchdowns, made the Pro Bowl, and was Offensive Rookie of the Year. Yep. So pretty good start. 91, they lean on him quite heavily after Aikman goes down midway through the season. League leading 353 carries. Again, the durability. 1,563 yards rushing with 12 touchdowns. And like I said, first of 4 rushing titles. And this is an era with Barry Sanders.
Yes.
So they do end up losing Aikman, but they make the playoffs. They upset the Bears and end up losing to the Detroit Lions in the divisional round. And as we've said in a past podcast, the last playoff victory for the Detroit Lions. And that game kind of left a sour taste in Dallas's mouth. That offseason, they need a pass rusher. They get Charles Haley and his penis, which from all reports is bigger than Shaq's penis, which is a mystery still.
Well, and I want to bring up personalities with this one. So I want to bring up Emmitt's personality because they say he's very laid back. He's very he really treats it like a business. He treats it like a business.
This is your baby.
And they bring in Charles Haley, who treats it like a fucking
the Naked Warrior.
Yeah,
but
like I don't even know what to say with Charles. So I imagine it was very weird locker room in that time where you have these guys that are so professional, and then you have these other guys who are just out of their mind.
You have Aikman and Smith looking around like, guys, just please get it together. Please.
Well, I wonder what the big divide was. Was it like offense, defense? Was it, you know what I mean?
I think Emmitt, though, from his personality, how he'd always keep the touchdown balls that he rushed with or caught. I think he was more or less selfish. Like, this is a business. I'm going out to do it to the best of my ability for the team and make my money.
I agree. He does seem like a very headstrong, selfish kind of player.
And I won't say it's selfish in a negative way, because it wasn't like he was a me guy in front of everybody. It was more or less like, I know what I'm worth, and I know what I'm worth to the team. You know?
Well, I was going to say he was a great teammate, but he was very knowledgeable about what he was worth. You're right about that. And he has like literally a storage locker filled with his own memorabilia, which is quite
That's like putting a mirror above your bed, if you know what I mean. But
we both got that, just in case you're wondering.
It's right next to my Patrick Swayze poster.
Sometimes I can get it to reflect, and it looks like Patrick's looking right at me.
And I'm like, oh, man, I didn't think it'd go so fast. All right, 1992, Dallas
And that's
Cowboys.
when the parachute comes out. All right.
You are one radical son of a bitch. 1992. Cowboys are incredible this year, and so is Emmitt. Sets a franchise record with 1,713 rushing yards, led the league with 18 touchdowns, 59 catches too, and 1 touch. And that's the other thing I wanted to bring up about Emmitt, not just as a runner, is he had dependable hands. Was he Marshall Faulk? By no means, but you'd put him on those swings and screens, catch the ball for you reliably, and he was a good pass blocker too.
Yes. So he was very above average at almost everything, and then he was great with, I feel like, with being that running back that just bulls through.
3 down back,
yes.
Yeah. And behind that offensive line and Moose Johnston,
yes.
Your fullback. I mean, Moose Johnston, that's...
I'll tell you what I found interesting was his path with teams. So he joined this high school team that had never had a winning season, then 2 state championships. He joins Florida off of being like not shitty, but like being penalized.
Resurrects them from the dead.
Resurrects them, and then comes into Dallas after they have 1 win. Yeah. And now in 92, literally it was like 3 years after. Now in 92,
1-15, 7-9. I think they were 11-5, and then Now they're 12-4.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things
and they
where
win the NFC East this year because the year before they were a wild card when Washington had won the Super Bowl. So they're the kings of the NFC East this season.
Well, I bet he is very just centric on you're reliable to build around him, which I every single team does it. So and does it successfully.
Yeah, they roll into the playoffs. They go in as underdogs to the NFC Championship at Candlestick Park. Everyone was, gaga over the 49ers, and they end up pulling out victory. Emmitt's a huge reason why, because they're playing on a wet, muddy field, and he's the perfect type of running back for any conditions.
This is some of because sometimes you get playoff teams that meet each other constantly. And I remember this when I was like 8 or whatever, was the 49ers kept meeting up with the Cowboys. Yeah. And this is just one of those things, especially with Haley going from the 49ers and coming, and then the Cowboys actually, doing it in this season.
Pull out the victory. They go to the Super Bowl against the Bills, and, well, we all know how those Super Bowls end up.
I don't know what to say about if you're a Bills fan, because Jesus.
They win 52-17. Emmitt has a rushing touchdown in the game, and he became the first player to actually win a rushing title and Super Bowl in the same season, which I thought was a pretty cool stat.
He was the first player to go to a Super Bowl, and then they end up winning.
But after this game happens, Emmitt, where's my money? Where's my money, Brian?
Well, his rookie contract is over, and there's a feeling in the Dallas locker room that he's not as important as he thinks he is. So, they could easily slot in another running back. So that's really the thought.
What happened. That's what people were talking about was, do we make him the highest paid running back in the NFL when you have Barry Sanders doing what he's doing in Detroit with not a lot, and Emmitt with an embarrassment of riches in Dallas? And they tried to lowball him, but he stuck to his guns, man.
I was actually surprised
him
for
doing
this. No, 100%. I'm not. I won't talk shit on holding out and getting the money that you actually are worth. That's the thing. Is there's these times where maybe not the best running back gets the highest paid contract,
just because of the way numbers are and when guys' contracts come up.
But he definitely deserves this contract right now, coming off of literally running title, Super Bowl.
2 rushing titles, you win a Super Bowl by year 3. Yeah, you deserve a raise.
Yes, 100%. So he literally holds out all of training camp,
OTAs, and into the preseason and into the regular season in their first 2 games.
Which is wild. That's a long time to hold out.
But what happens in those first 2 games, and I think really broke the stalemate, Dallas loses both games to Washington and Buffalo.
And they're not looking good.
No. The Buffalo lost at home afterwards. I think we even brought it up in the Haley episode. He threw his helmet, which broke a wall in the locker room, at Jerry Jones and said, "Pay Emmitt Smith."
Well,
that's all because that's how important he was to
controlling the clock, all of it.
To the chemistry of how the team runs itself.
Yep.
Is like when you take that out of the equation, granted, you have Troy Aikman, Michael Irvin, Alvin Harper, an amazing offensive line, a great deep defensive line, a solid secondary, great linebackers. But you know what you're missing? The guy who makes everything go, who gains all those yards for you and sets the tone.
I think that was the thing, was for offense, he was the guy that sets the tone that you could tell was like the complete respect of the defense and all of that. So they finally come in and make him the highest paid running back.
Yeah, so he was only limited to 14 games that year, but it doesn't matter because he leads the league. And this is what I love, stories like this, when guys hold out and then they come in and just absolutely lay waste to the league. Those dollars are going somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because sometimes guys will get that big contract and lay back. It's very true. It's like maybe an injury, something happens, but he gets this huge contract and he's like, I'm going to earn this money. And man, does he.
I think a lot of it was on him was a lot of the thing with they're 0-2. I need to get this team back.
Yeah.
Like, I have no time to just lay back and, not give a shit.
Yeah, seriously.
So he leads the league in yards per carry with 5.3. He wins another rushing title on the last day of the year against Jerome Bettis with 1,486 yards, 9 touchdowns, obviously because he only plays in 14 games. And he also has 57 catches for a career high 414 yards. That's amazing. In 14 games, you have 18, rack up basically 1,900 total yards.
Yeah. His total yards at the end of his career is insane.
But the Week 18 game that year I did want to bring up. It's a career-defining game for him because despite the fact they started 0-2, they made their way back in the NFC East race, and they're playing the Giants at the Meadowlands for the division title. With 2 minutes left in the first half, Emmitt separates his shoulder. And when I say separate, he should have been out for the rest of the game. Emmitt comes back in this cold game, a 16-13 overtime win, and just dominates. They keep feeding him the ball, and you could hear his shoulder grinding inside of his body.
I was going to say, like, not only does he stay in the game, but I feel like his carry's up. And not only is
the touches, yeah.
Yeah, not only is it the second half, but also into overtime.
And that just speaks, like, you can call him selfish, but every time, the bell was rung, he answered it.
Not as a teammate. I feel like none of his teammates.
None of his teammates.
Yeah.
They were probably like, maybe he's selfish as far as the way he handles himself in the locker room or off the field. But when comes to football,
yes,
he's the guy we want to have the ball.
Yeah, seriously.
So they end up winning the division. They have home field advantage in the NFC this year. So they get the 49ers again at home. And in that Aikman concussion game, go listen to that episode. It's good. They end up beating them in the NFC title game and draw the Bills again, Chris, in the Super Bowl.
Oh, the Bills.
And the Bills are winning this game at halftime because Aikman is still in granted, concussions of their time. In a CTE fog, and the Bills, despite some mistakes, are up 13-6 at halftime.
I thought it was interesting. They were coming into half, and Jimmy Johnson, I love that mix-up, tells them, he's just like, we know exactly what they're doing on defense, and we know exactly what we're going to do. So, like, there was he was almost so confident, almost like they were winning already.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, guys, trust me. We're going to give the ball to Emmitt, and we know exactly where we know exactly where the holes are going to be by the way they're running their defense on this first half. And I bet it was such we know what we're doing.
Well, I mean, they came out and Aikman's even said this. He's like, I got a great offensive line, a great fullback, and I've got Emmitt Smith.
Yep.
And in that second half, they end up shutting the Bills out and win the game 30-13. Multiple rushing touchdowns, 30 carries, 132 yards, 2 TDs, and he is named the game's MVP. Goes back to back. How's that for an investment, Jerry Jones?
Well, I mean, you can't deny him. That's my thing. I'm not a Cowboys fan. I don't know if you heard the beginning of this episode.
Neither am I, as we'll get into in a couple of seasons.
Our intro, but it is, you can't deny the way he takes over games. That's the other thing is like. This season is his, like, the back-to-back Super Bowls, all of that is, I mean, it's remarkable.
So 94, Jimmy Johnson is gone, but he still leads the league with 21 rushing touchdowns. Also had a league-leading 360 carries because that's just what he does. Almost 1,500 yards rushing, and, 341 reception yards on 50 catches. So you're pretty much, as you'll end up seeing throughout this podcast, you're going to get this type of productivity for about 11 years.
Yeah, it's crazy.
In a row. They make it to the playoffs. They end up making it all the way back to Candlestick Park, but cannot dig themselves out of a 21-0 first quarter hole.
Yeah, they end up losing to the 49ers again, and this epic back and forth between these two teams, and come back in 95.
Come back in 95, and Emmitt starting says, hey, I've set team records and broken Tony Dorsett records. Let's break some NFL records.
I was going to say, this is when he starts breaking records, that's the other thing is he was a big stat guy,
Yeah.
He did want to get his stats, but he also
Stats get you paid.
Well, he also knew that, that's just moving the chains, man.
Career high 62 catches, I might add, but 25 rushing touchdowns, which was an NFL record until Sean Alexander broke it 10 years later.
Yep.
That's amazing. League leading in carries again, 377. Rush yards, career high, 1,777. And the first player to rush for 1,400 plus yards in 5 straight seasons in NFL. That's amazing. That's so amazing.
Yeah.
God. Broke multiple Tony Dorsett's records for most consecutive 100-yard games to start a season and most rush yards in a year. They win the division again under Barry Switzer. They dispatch the Eagles and then Packers in the playoffs, and they're in another Super Bowl where Emmitt's doing Emmitt Smith things. They play the Steelers, and while the game was kind of tight up until the fourth quarter, Emmitt manages to ice the game after 2 interceptions, which will haunt my dreams for the rest of my life. And they win 27-7. See, Chris, I held it together.
I know. It was rough, I could tell. Because there was a point in which Dom thought everything was coming together, and then it all went to shit.
He was covering grass, God damn it!
So they win the 95 Super Bowl, and they kind of cement this dynasty of 3 and 4 years.
90s, yeah, and then you thought everything would be good, but as we discussed in our Aikman episode, free agency happens because they built most of this team when there was no salary cap.
Yep.
Age starts to happen. Players start doing things like strippers and crack, and the chemistry is off with Barry Switzer, I would say.
Yes, it is very much a dysfunctional team coming right off of all of this winning.
But despite all this, there is one constant, and it is Emmitt Smith kicking ass.
It's true.
1996, he has 1,204 rush yards and 12 touchdowns. Had career high 3 touchdown catches on 47 total receptions, and that season, they win the division again, but they do not get a first-round bye in the playoffs, so they have to travel to Carolina after ass-blasting the Vikings in the first round of the playoffs. Listen to the Chris Carter episode. We talked about that. And they end up losing.
Yeah.
They end up I think they might have even been favored in that game, too, even despite being on the road. And that begins a long era, which is still continuing, of wonderful Cowboy mediocrity and incompetence.
Well, and this
as a team, not Emmitt.
And this is what was so interesting is they really went from a dynasty to just dropping off any playoff success, which I think is more glaring that you see the end of this 90s. They just really can't put it together for shit in the playoffs.
No, 97 they plummet to 6-10. Emmitt gets over 1,000 yards, 1,074 and 4 touchdowns, but they're out of the playoffs.
Yeah.
98 and 99, both seasons. Emmitt has,
he's breaking records.
Emmitt Smith seasons. 1,332 in 98, almost 1,400 with 1,397 in 99. They're winning the division, but they're losing in the first round of the playoffs to the Cardinals and the Vikings. So by this point, Aikman's pretty much finished. The line is basically disintegrated or retired or out of the league, and they're needing to rebuild again. And 2000, they have another terrible year on paper as far as their records, but he has 1,203 rushing yards.
I saw around this time, it was like 99, 2000, that one of his teammates saw that he had his stats laid out, like if I get this much per this season and stay this healthy, that I can beat, Walter Payton's record of all-time rushing yards.
But why wouldn't you at that point?
Because he was so close. So like 2000, he's a couple of thousand yards away.
So from 1991 to 2001, which I'll get into, we had 1,201 rushing yards that year. That's 11 seasons in a row he went over 1,000 yards.
He was the first player to ever have 11 consecutive seasons or have 11 seasons.
Yeah, and the thing is, Walter Payton, I think his record's like 1,500 and change, right? if you have 11 straight 1,000-yard seasons plus the extra hundreds that you're rushing for each year, you're in that territory by 2002.
Yep.
And he had almost 1,000 his rookie season, too. So, I mean, it's like kind of 12 in a row. So, 2002, at age 33, on October 27th, he breaks the all-time NFL rushing record on a 10-yard run and breaks Walter Payton, which many thought nobody would, especially after Barry Sanders retired, being close to it.
Well, and just the way the game was being so
11-yard
harsh
run.
on running backs that nobody really thought that anybody was going to be durable enough to stay in the league for that long, and Emmitt showed them.
You will, especially with how fast and violent the game is now. Like, for someone to even last that long to break it, this is basically, in my opinion, the Cy Young wins record of the NFL more than anything else.
Yeah.
Even Norm Van Brocklin's passing yards. This one, because of the way running backs are used and the game is played, no one is going to eclipse the numbers that I'll give out at the end of the episode here.
Yeah.
So after that season, though, because Bill Parcells is hired to right the ship in Dallas, which never quite happened, the team's trying to get younger. They end up releasing him.
Well, I saw this, and I thought it was kind of harsh. So Jerry Jones came to him because he said he still wanted to play. He said he still had a couple of years in him, and Emmitt said he would have taken less money. Like he would have restructured his contract. But Jerry Jones literally was like, "I want you to retire right now
As a Cowboy.
Right after you broke the record, because it's kind of like a huge publicity thing, and then we can kind of show that we're rebuilding."
You're telling me that Jerry Jones is a self-aggrandizing whore?
Yes.
Surely you jest.
The quote that I love is he goes, "You're lucky this isn't college."
Oh, God.
But so
Student athletes.
That's so Jerry Jones.
Oh, it is. Oh, God, it is.
But so he decides to go to the Cardinals, which I feel like
It's a total publicity stunt, cash grab for a new stadium. I remember this.
That's what a lot of people said was, how good could he be? And a lot of the Cardinals players said that he came in and was very professional and all of that kind of shit. But it was very much a superstar coming in to sell jerseys.
Yeah, and on October 5th of 2003, playing Dallas, broke his left shoulder blade and finished with 6 carries for -1 yard, the only time in his career he finished with negative yardage in a game, which is just a weird twist of fate to happening against the Cowboys. But
well, I saw he in this interview, he said he couldn't get mentally prepared for that game, like coming into Dallas stadium on the bus, not driving his car. Like, that's what he said. He was just like, I just couldn't mentally get into the game, and he ended up hurting himself for getting hurt because of it.
Yeah, so his season was pretty much done after that. But in 2004, like the old pro that he is, 937 rush yards and 9 touchdowns.
Yeah.
For a team that you could see signs of building. You got Anquan Bolden, Larry Fitzgerald, stuff cooking on the offensive side of the ball. Even threw his first TD pass that year.
Oh, yeah.
So, after the season, he ends up retiring, signed a one-day contract with the Cowboys, so
he could retire as a Cowboy.
F you, Jerry Jones.
Yes, exactly.
After his career, he went into some fun broadcasting. Oh, man. Emmitt Smith, Wordsmith on Jimmy Kimmel Live was always fun.
Oh, man, they kind of ripped him a little hard. It's tough.
But one of my bosses and I, we would always... one time we actually heard him say shabackle.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But maybe broadcasting wasn't for Emmitt. But,
no, it wasn't.
By that same token, he was on Dancing with the Stars, still in the limelight as a former Cowboy. Worked on ESPN as well as the NFL Network. But you want to go over his career stats because they're pretty much some of the most incredible in NFL history. NFL record for carries, 4,409. Rush yards, 18,355. And rushing touchdowns, 164. Had over 500 catches, so 515 catches, 3,224 yards, 11 touchdowns. And his 175 touchdowns are second to only Jerry Rice total. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, his stats are, and that's what I mean.
As a running back, Jerry Rice took nowhere near the amount of punishment as Emmitt Smith.
He was very focused on stats, and he wanted to go down as this greatest running back of all time, which is debatable as to skill level, but I
wouldn't put him number 1, but he's top 10 for me. He's no lower than top 10.
I think so. Let me say this: I think he's top 5 because of his numbers, not because of the actual skill of being a running back. I mean, 3 Super Bowls. And then top in pretty much all of his numbers. And the thing that I have to say,
93 MVP.
He was
Super Bowl and the league.
Well, he's top in yards, TDs for postseason.
Yeah,
that's the thing also, that you have to look at is he really got it done in the postseason better than any other running back.
Yeah, his 21,564 total yards. Only one of 4 guys to do that, with Jerry Rice, Brian Mitchell, who was a returner for like a decade and a half and really good, and Walter Payton. And then basically, one of 2 players, also Jerry Rice, to have 1,000 points scored who isn't a kicker. Mm-hmm. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, him and putting your name up with Jerry Rice like that is crazy. It's crazy to think he's up there as a running back.
And that's what I mean is the longevity of that position is you will never see someone like that again. I mean, Adrian Peterson and Frank Gore, yeah, but they're not even sniffing 1,800 plus on the ground.
And it's just a different game. You're not going to see a full-time running back that it's just different, just
like pimps, you got a stable,
Gots to.
You gots to.
You got your bottom bitch.
Yeah.
You got your fucking
College Football Hall of Fame and Pro Football Hall of Fame. I mean, this guy, we both watched him as a kid and you were just like, God damn Cowboys. Like, really? Come on. Why?
Yeah.
You're just that good.
Yeah, no, he was great. 3-time Super Bowl champion, a great off-field person. So got to give it up to him.
Yeah. Emmitt.